Hello everyone. You have probably figured out by now that I'm not there today. Those are good powers of observation. Unfortunately, I had to stay home because my daughter is still sick and I am starting to feel sick as well. So, I wanted to make sure that we went over on this video the stuff that you guys will need to know in order to do the assignment that you have today on NetSchool. So, what I need you guys to do now, if you haven't done so already, is get out your tablets and log in to NetSchool. You will also need your notebook as well, because you guys will have to write down just a little bit of notes from the notes that are on NetSchool as well. So if the person showing the video could pause for a minute while you guys get ready, that would be good. Okay, if you guys are on NetSchool, what you need to do is go to your NetSchool. I'm going to switch my role to student so you guys can see what you'll see. Scroll down until you get to Unit 1. And you can see there's a new assignment, Significant Figures Math Assignment. Before we get to that assignment, though, we need to go over the Unit 1 notes that are going to be necessary. So let me open those up. I'm going to open those in a new tab. I'll zoom in for you guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so I'll just go 3. There we go. Alright, so what we need to look at today is this section right here. Where do I round my answer? You guys might remember from yesterday we talked about significant figures. We talked about the rules for counting them, so you guys should remember the rules that we talked about yesterday. Now, I told you to write down 2 different rules in your notebook, so please use those when figuring out the numbers of significant figures. You guys will still need to figure out the numbers of significant figures in order to do the math for significant figures. So the stuff we used yesterday you'll need to use in addition to what you're using today. Alright, so what this says here is, when multiplying and dividing, your answer needs to be rounded to the correct number of significant digits. Your answer should have the same number of significant digits as the factor with the least number of significant digits. So round to the least number of significant digits. So this is a fancy way of saying when you are multiplying and dividing with significant figures, whichever number has the least significant figures, then that is the number that your answer will have. For example, if I take 28.0, which has 3 significant figures, and I multiply that by 343.708, which is 6, 4.0003, which is 5, times 78.10, which is 4, the least number of significant figures is going to be 3 on 28.0. So if I multiply all this in my calculator, so I'm going to do it in my calculator up here, I get 28.0 times 343.708 times 4.0003 times 78.10. I get that big long number. Okay, obviously I'm not going to write all that down. Instead, I am going to round my answer to 3 significant digits. Now, keep in mind, the 4th digit here is significant, but the 3rd one is a sandwich 0. So, if you're rounding to 3 significant digits, you got to stop after 3. So the 3 is 1, the 0 is 1, and you're going to have to round this 6 up to a 1. So, the answer is going to be 301, or 3,010,000. Okay, 3 significant digits. If I was rounding this to 4 significant digits, it would be 3007, because the 7 would round the 6 up, 000. Okay, so multiplying and dividing, you always have the same number of significant figures as whichever one is the least. Okay, when adding and subtracting, round your answer to the least number of decimal places in any of the numbers that make up your answer. So, for example, if I'm adding these 3 numbers, you're just looking at the decimal places. I'm not looking at all the significant figures, just the number of decimal places. So in this one, 2.38, there's 2 decimal places. 36.1 has 1 decimal place. 0.340098 is going to be 6 decimal places. So the least decimal places is 1, which means my answer has to be 1. So I get this big number if I put it in the calculator, and that's 38.820098. I'm only going to the first decimal place, so it's going to be 38.8. I look at the 2 just to make sure it's not going to round. The 2 is below 5, so it's not going to round up. So my answer should, in this case, be 38.8. Alright, let's do some of these ones down here just as an example. Okay, and I'll pause the video so you guys can figure those out. 4.01 minus 5.98. This first one has 2 significant decimal places. This one has 2 decimal places, which means your answer should have 2 decimal places. So let's do the math. 4.01 minus 5.98 equals negative 1.97. Alright, my answer should have 2 decimal places. It already does have 2 decimal places, so that is the answer, negative 1.97. Why don't you guys try the other 2 adding and subtracting ones, and you can also go to do the multiplying and dividing ones if you think you know how to do those as well. I'll pause the video for a minute so you guys can do that. Okay, now that we're back and nothing has changed, you guys should have figured out that if I take 134.987 plus 4.2, I get this big number here. But since this has 3 decimal places, this one only has 1 decimal place. Your answer can only have 1 decimal place. So it's going to be 139.1, but I'm going to look at that 8. That 8 is bigger than a 5, so it's going to round up. So it should be 139.2 for this answer right here. 139.2 should be your answer for that second one. The third one is 98.067 minus 4. So it's 94.067. But since this number has no decimal places down here, the 4, then that means this answer can have no decimal places. So instead of 94.067, you would just write down 94. This would be a very non-precise measurement, so your answer can't be very precise. For multiplying and dividing, like we said earlier, you use whichever one has the least number of significant figures. So let's look at these 2 numbers. 501. There's no decimal place, but the 0 is sandwiched, and there's the 5 and a 1. So there's 3 significant figures right there. Here there is a decimal place. The 7 is a real number, which means everything else is significant. So this is 4 significant figures. So this has 3, this has 4, which means our answer will only have 3 significant figures. So we're going to take 501 times 7.000. We get 3,507 right there. Since my significant figures on the lowest is 3, I can only have 3 here. So this is going to round to 3,510 and then a following 0, because that last 0 won't be significant, but it needs to be a placeholder. Now you can't just write 351 here like that, because that's not what that number rounds to. It's going to be 3,510 because the real answer was 3,507 or whatever it was. So keep that in mind. Alright, I'll give you guys another minute. If you could please pause the video to try these other 2 problems. Alright, we're back. If you guys have done these other 2 problems correctly, then you should have done 2.0 divided by 600 equals 58.5033, which means, if I look at my first numbers, this guy has 2 significant figures. This guy only has 1 significant figure. So I can only have 1 significant figure in my answer. Since it's 58.5, I look at the first number as a 5. The 8 is the next number, but I'm only going to 1 significant figure. So that 8 is going to round that 5 up to a 6. So the answer, if you round it correctly, should be 60. Okay, because that's 1 significant figure. On the next one, 0.1089. Oh, let me fix that. 0.1089 times 1.0110, that's going to equal that number. This is a decimal point. There's my first real number, so I've got 4 significant figures. Decimal point, first real number, so I've got 5, which means 4 is the lowest, so my answer should have 4. So there's my first significant figure, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 0.1100. I'm going to look at the next number to see if I'm going to round it. Since the 9 will round up, my answer should be 0.1101. is the answer for that. Alright, so if you guys have any questions, you guys can write down these notes or come and look at these notes, but this should be pretty self-evident. So let's go back to the Net School page. You guys are going to do this significant figures math assignment. Alright, I'll give you guys a second to pull that up and log back into there while I pause it. Okay, so to do the assignment, you guys will go into the significant figures math assignment. I know it'll say quiz again, but it's just an assignment. It's going to be due Friday before 5 o'clock, but you guys should probably be able to finish this before you leave. In fact, I'll be shocked if you don't finish it before you leave the classroom. So, the quiz will look something like this. You once again have 2 attempts, and the attempts will be adaptive, so you'll lose points if you miss answers. So, I would check through the first time, get whatever grade you get, then reattempt and try to make sure you get as high a grade on the second time as you can. Alright, so as you can see, we've got 5 math problems here. These ones are just addition and subtraction. On the next page, I've got some multiplication and some division. On the next page, it mixes it up a little more, multiplication, division. This one has some subtraction and division. So make sure you guys are using the correct rules at the correct time. Remember, for division and multiplication, you're going to do whichever one has the least significant figures. That's what your answer will have in it. For adding and subtracting, you look at the least number of decimal places, and that's what your answer will have in it. So, for example, if I do, let's say we're going to do this first one right here. Okay, so it is 4,327. 4,327.003 minus 2.1 equals 4,324.903. This guy had 3 decimal places. This guy had 1 decimal place, which means my answer will have 1 decimal place. So the answer for this is going to be 4,324.9. Okay? If I'm going to do this addition, it's going to be, this division, it's going to be 2.532 divided by 6.3. Gives me this ridiculous number. This has 4 significant figures. This one has 2 significant figures. So my answer here is going to be in 2 significant figures. So 0.401. That 1 is not going to round up. So my answer should be 0.40. The 4 is significant and the 0 is significant. 0.40. Okay? I don't know if this will let me check with just 2. No, it won't. You have to fill in all these in order to check it. But I guarantee those are right because I'm a genius. So, hopefully you guys don't have any questions. If you do, then you can go talk to Mr. Blackmore after school across the hall. He has tutoring sessions on Thursdays, so he'll be available after school today. Hopefully you guys will be okay. You do have a quiz over the sig fig stuff tomorrow, both the regular rules and the adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. So, I hope that you guys have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.